Well, in the wake of Friday's tragedy, there's been speculation about the impact the attacks could have on Europe's refugee crisis. For more on that, I'm joined now by Demetrios Papademetriou from the Migration Policy Institute. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. What impact, if any, could these attacks on Paris have on European refugee policy?
Well, I would imagine at least three areas in which we're going to see some difference in terms of the policy. The first one is at the borders. I suspect that both the Eastern Mediterranean and Central Mediterranean borders will harden. That's inevitable. Second, we're going to see a much more careful screening of refugee applicants. We have fallen into the habit in the last several months of granting asylum and refugee status categorically to people coming from certain countries. I think countries now will start paying much more attention to individual claims as a means of trying to protect themselves from possible security situations. The third area, I suspect, is not on the table yet, but I think that it will be soon. We're going to probably opt for large resettlement programs rather than the chaotic situation that we see in the current migration crisis.
Do you think the EU then has been too lax in its rules and regulations around letting migrants into the continent?
I think it has been, in one sense, the convenient thing to do. It takes an awful lot of personnel and an awful lot of time to actually individually assess claims. So it has been, in a sense, convenient to say all Syrians are by definition refugees. There has also been a bit of laxness as to where it is that you make these determinations. After people have already gone through most of Europe to reach their destination, or do you try to do that at the border? So I suspect laxness may not necessarily be the right word, but I expect that things will, in a sense, be rethought in the days ahead.
And in light of Friday's events, do you expect any kind of backlash from the right-wing parties across Europe? There have already been talk from the Front National in Paris and the Polish ruling party.
I think that it makes a lot of sense that they will gain, these right-wing parties, they will gain adherents in the days and weeks ahead, but in the previous 2 days and next week, I think the smart right-wing parties will keep their tongues tied so as not to, in a sense, do a disservice and be disrespectful of the people who lost their lives. But I think inevitably, if it becomes clear that this has been partly an intelligence failure, I suspect that we will see quite a bit more attention paid to these issues, and I suspect that the right wing will gain from this, despite the fact that these were primarily not refugees who have seemed to be responsible for the Paris attacks, but disaffected youth, some of whom are second and third and fourth generation Belgians or French.
And while, of course, there is no firm evidence that the people who came to France were refugees, how do you think that those who are already in the European Union may well now be affected by Friday's incident?
Well, everybody will be much more careful for a while. I think reservations about how much cooperation and intelligence sharing will probably go out of the window for a while. And I think the equilibrium point between security on the one hand and privacy on the other, or for this matter, protecting refugees, is going to shift a little bit, at least temporarily, in favor of more security and being more careful about these matters.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt there. Demetrios Papademetriou from the Migration Policy Institute, thank you for your time.